Hey guys, welcome back. It's Charles and Z, and as you know, we're in the car doing our Sunday Costco running errand stuff. And Z's not going to talk that much today because she's a little under the weather. She's losing her voice.
Yeah, I'll give some input, but I'm a little hoarse, so excuse me.
And today's video is not, before I go into that, thank you everybody who's subscribing to our channel. You guys are doing amazing. We've grown to 3,000 subscribers now, and we can't tell you how happy we are about that. But anyway, today I want to share a story. It's not what we were planning to record today, but it's something that happened today, and it's probably one of the weirdest things that's happened to me in recent memory, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I want to tell a little bit of the background. So as you guys know, we have 3 kids. We have baby man, who's behind Z, who you cannot see right now because his car seat had to move, but then we also have our 2 older kids who are not Z's biological kids. They are my kids from a prior marriage. Their mom, unfortunately, she passed away in 2020, and that was what led to me meeting Z and subsequently us getting married. But anyway, Z adopted those kids, and so now they are also her kids. So we have 3 kids, but just one of them is our biological child. And so, thanks, baby man. And so the older kids, their mom passed away when they were 3 and 2. They just turned 3 and 2. They're exactly 12 months apart. And so the 2-year-old is our girl, and she didn't really have that many memories of her biological mom. The 3-year-old, our oldest, who's a boy, he does have some memories he's retained about his biological mom, and those come up from time to time. But what's odd is that he seems to be the one who has kind of acclimated the best to the situation. He's a really happy-go-lucky kid. He acknowledges that that's something that happened in the past. He knows, obviously, Z is not his biological mom, but none of that ever seems to really bother him or come up to the surface very much. So the older kids, they just turned 9 and 8. Our son's 9, our middle daughter's 8. And she, our daughter, has started having thoughts come up about her biological mom, and there have been like a couple of little questions about, like, what was she like, in this aspect or that aspect. But what came up most recently and has been kind of persistent is, for her birthday, my mom took her out shopping, and she bought a locket, like this little heart-shaped pendant that you wear around your neck, and you put a picture in it. And she came home from that shopping trip, and she's like, hey, I want to get a picture of so-and-so, who's her biological mom, and put it in this locket. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That kind of came out of nowhere. And we just rolled with it. And I said, sure, yeah, let's go on my phone, and we'll go pick out a nice picture of her or of you and her, and we'll get it printed up, and we'll put it in this locket. And this came up like during our moving and all that, so I probably wasn't the best at staying on top of it, but then she reminded me like 4 or 5 times about it. And so finally, today, we were going to the drugstore to get something else, and she reminded me about it. I'm like, okay. So I sent it to the drugstore to get printed out, and we went and we picked up the picture when we were getting our other stuff, and brought it home. And this is where it got a little weird. So what I did, because this is like a cheap little locket, and there's not a really good way to get the picture, and you got to kind of like wedge it under the lip of the locket. So I took the picture, and I printed it onto the same piece of photo paper in like 5 different sizes, so we could try to pick the one that was going to be the best shape. And so Z sits down with our daughter, and they're kind of cutting, around these pictures, and they're trying to like fit them in. They're trying to like trim them and try to figure it out. And then finally, our daughter, she loses interest. So she kind of walks away, and she's watching TV, and Z's left there at the table trying to trim out this picture. And so I come over to help, and we're kind of working on this together. And all of a sudden, I just have this moment of realization. I stopped. I said, "This is the weirdest thing that's happened to me in a very, very, very long time. I'm sitting here with my wife, trying to cut out a picture of my dead former wife and put it into a locket, and we're like attacking this like it's a craft project."
Now, I will say it's not a very common situation to be, or predicament to be in. But what about her seeking a connection or wanting the picture in the locket? What about that makes you uncomfortable, or what makes it weird to you?
Yeah, so I have a lot of emotions around this. And to answer that question, I've got to start from the beginning, right?
Okay.
So when she died, and we're not going to go into the specifics of that, other than it was sudden and unplanned, and unexpected, and so when that happened, all of a sudden it was me with a new 3-year-old and 2-year-old, on my own, trying to figure out what to do. And I felt like everything in my world was kind of exploded apart. And it took a long time to take all those pieces and bring them together. And I feel like we've come so far with that. And, I can't explain how happy I am with things today. I could never in my wildest dreams 7 years ago have imagined that today things were going to be as great as they are.
Yeah.
And so rightly or wrongly, to me, when stuff comes up like this, as innocent as it is, with just our daughter kind of like, exploring herself, her origins, exploring, where she came from, totally innocent, totally expected. But to me, it's almost a little invasive, or and I have maybe a little bit of a defensive reaction to it, because while I understand why she's doing it, part of me is kind of like, why are you doing this? Like, I worked so hard to make all this good, and Z has been with these kids and has been their mom for way longer than their biological mom, and Z's done all the work. And so to me, it's kind of like, I don't want to deal with this, because I don't want to diminish anything that Z's done. So that's kind of my reaction to it.
I was telling Charles earlier today that, well, one, in general, I feel like, or what I've learned with having and raising children, it's not fair, right? You really, being an adult and being their parent, you have to realize that it really is just about them. So as much as you want the gratification and you want the rewards for your hard work, you may not always receive that. Being a parent is a very selfless act, whether you're the biological or, the, I hate step, but bonus parent, so to speak. All that being said, I knew there was going to come a time and a point for both of our older children where they may inquire about their biological mother. And I think I'm okay with that. So yes, I've been a part of their lives since age 2 and 3, but I think it's a natural urge to want to seek to learn more about the person who birthed you.
Sure.
Especially, we have their family in our lives, right? The grandparents,
Yep.
Their biological mother, we see them during the holidays. We have them over for Thanksgiving. They come and visit. They take the children. I've been...
And they're super nice, by the way.
They're super nice, right? We spend time with them, and so we have a great relationship. And so with all of that, I think it'd be quite natural that they're going to inquire about their biological mother. Number two is my biological kids are a different race from me, different hue, very different. So we obviously...
Your adopted kids.
My non-biological, right? Yeah. My adopted children, excuse me. And so it's very obvious that we're not related, you know, by blood, right? Just based off of how we physically appear. And I think that also further, what's the words that I'm looking for?
Underscores the differences?
Maybe underscores, but it would further push them to seek information about who birthed them. Like, why do I look this way? Why is my hair color this way? Why are my eyes looking this way? And I think our daughter looks a lot like her biological mother, she right?
Does. Oh, it's funny that you mentioned that because those are some of the questions. Those are some of the questions that she's had. You know, like so-and-so's hair color, was it like mine? How was it different from mine? You know, is it the same? And then also, she's mentioned like resemblance a few times.
Yeah, and I see her trying to make the connection, right? Because our youngest child, the one that we share, you know, or that we created together, I guess, my biological son, he is, you know, very curly hair. And she's like, is his hair curly because of me? So I see her trying to make the link and the connection, which I think is natural, right? And it's she doesn't have a usual or very common family situation, right? Yeah. And so although I know I'm putting in the work and things like that, I understand that she has to seek this out on her own. And so my goal is to be accommodating, even as uncomfortable as it may be. It's not about me, right? And I think when I first met Charles, that was something that I had to come to terms with, because I always tell him when I first met our two oldest kiddos, I would feel anxious or sad if they didn't want to hold my hand, or if they, you know, and I had to realize it would take time. I would have to create that relationship. And like I was saying, being a parent is very selfless. So I'm not always going to get the reward of putting all the hard work in and being there years in and year out. Hopefully, you know, they recognize that as they get older, but you know, that may not be the case. And by no means do I think our daughter is doing that with ill intent, right? Yeah. Because her biological mom, I was telling Charles, she calls her by her name. She doesn't call her mom, right?
Which I really like the fact that, you know, she refers to her by her name, and that she's not taking that mantle away from you.
Yeah, she's not taking it away. I mean, when she's explaining it, she'll explain, you know, this is my stepmom sometimes, or she'll say mom, and whatever she's comfortable with. I want her to know where she comes from. Sure. I'm okay with that. So yes, I would say it was a little awkward for me to be like cutting out a picture, you know, of her, but I didn't want her to feel awkward about it. I wanted to help.
Yes.
You know, I wanted her to feel like we're on this journey with her, that I'm on this journey with her, which I am, right? It's what I signed up for, and I love her. And so with that love, I'm going to do uncomfortable things, right? I think it's for the greater good. So yes, I'm here trying to cut a heart-shaped picture around the head of her biological mom, and she sits there and watches TV and tells me the picture is not quite the right shape. You know, so it's not the usual, you know, situation that you sign up for, but it's a part of her journey, and I want to be a part of that journey for her. So I was telling Charles, I feel like Charles gets more anxious or feels, and I get it, because I think you want me to feel comfortable. I feel like part of you wants me to feel comfortable and feel like I'm getting the acknowledgement that I deserve. Mm-hmm. Or however you perceive it. And I feel like just being a part of their lives is my, I don't want to say award, but I get gratification. It's not easy by any means, right? And like I said, it's a selfless act, but having children, raising children allows you to grow so much. Prior to meeting you, I think I had this conversation a while back. I was like, having children it gives you so much patience, right? You will have days you cry, you have self-doubt, but it also gives you a strength. It gives you a patience. It's, for those of you with children, it's such a privilege to be a part of their growth, right?
Yeah.
In their journey in life, right? And so I don't take that, I don't, what's the word? I value that to some degree. So, I try to encourage Charles to, you don't have to say, hey, we're gonna get you a big stand-up display, of your mom and do all the things. But I just tell him, try to be supportive of her. And it's gonna be awkward, but it kind of comes with it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I want to tell you thank you, because I can't tell you how incredible it is the way that you've kind of rolled with everything, and our daughter, she's been very cavalier in the way that she's jumped into this recent obsession with her biological mom.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so the way she gets into things is she'll get into something a year ago. It was Kuromi, the little character that's I think it's not Pikachu's friend, but it's one of the Sanrio.
Sanrio, yeah.
Anyway, she gets into Kuromi, and then all we hear about is Kuromi. I want to have a Kuromi birthday party. My backpack's got to be Kuromi, my shoes have to be Kuromi, everything's got to be Kuromi. And then 2 weeks later, we don't like Kuromi anymore. There's Kuromi's gone from our lives. Then all of a sudden it's Pokemon cards, and I've got to have everything's got to be Pokemon cards, Pokemon. And then 2 weeks later, there's there's Pokemon cards laying in the back of the car, thrown everywhere. And oh, don't you want these anymore? No, I don't like those anymore. Okay, so and what's minorly offensive to me, I guess, is the fact that the way that she jumped into the obsession with her biological mom, it's so-and-so this, so-and-so that. It's the same as she jumps into an obsession with anything else. And two reasons why that's bothersome to me. First off is I don't want her biological mom to be an obsession. I think it's a very important subject. Her biological mom is way more important than Kuromi or than Pokemon cards or anything like that. And it's something that should be, that we should explore reverently, and that we should be careful about, and it's something that I want to have maybe a little more control over kind of the conversation about. And then secondly, the fact that I'm concerned about Z's feelings, because yes, Z is not their biological mom, but to me she's done way more with these kids, and it's selflessly, and she stepped in, and did these things when she wasn't required to do them. And so to me, I don't ever want her contribution to be overshadowed by the legend of something.
I think actions speak louder than words, right? So the time that I invest with her,
yeah,
I think. And like I said, especially when you're young, kids don't always recognize that. But I know that as an adult, or once I got into my late 20s, my 30s, I realized the contributions of my parents, what they made. I realized they're not perfect individuals, but I realized that. And even, I watch other YouTubers and things like that who had bonus parents they grew up with, and they talk about that is their parent, right? Because that's who raised them,
yeah,
right? That's who spent the time invested. So I know, hopefully that with time she will recognize and acknowledge that, right? And so, like I said, she has to be in her own discovery or journey. I don't think this is an obsession. Maybe she'll hone in on it now, but I think, once she's a teenager, things like that, she's going to want to know more information and put the pictures together. So I think this will be a lifelong discovery for her. And so I just don't want it to be every time she asks a question about her biological mom, sure. What do you want to know? Or how can I help you? Can I hold your hand?
Is that what I sound like?
Well, I feel like
maybe a little bit.
yeah, a little bit. Like you, I can tell when Charles like chances.
I do have a little bit of a visceral reaction.
He does, and I have to be like, and so I'm just there smiling. And is this okay? A heart-shaped head? Is this? No, okay. Let's see. Maybe we can fit this. This size will fit better. Let me not cut off her neck here. Oops, you cut off her chin. You know, it's awkward. I'm not saying this is an easy by any means. I'm not like, oh, this is kumbaya. It's a piece of cake, right? It is not. It's a very walking myself through the mental, walking myself through of what does this look like for me? How do I address how I feel and validate my feelings? But at the same time, realizing how she feels is important, right? In that regard. So I just try to make sure that you're not, because sometimes I could tense it. She's like watching you and you're like, can we do this later? Do we need to get the picture now? What do you?
Because I don't want to deal with it.
I know, but it's not about you though.
Right.
Right? So, and look at me having the self-growth.
I know.
Who would have thought? And it's not, I know it's not easy, but I just want her to feel, I just want her to feel comfortable. That is it.
Absolutely.
And she didn't ask to be put in this situation, but she's in it.
Right.
And so my job is I want her to feel like she's in a safe space. That is it.
Well, she's super lucky having you for a bonus mom.
Well, I mean, and she's blessed to have you as her daddy, right? So, no, and I mean that. It's not just for the YouTube. He knows that. So,
well, I think we've talked that one to death. But tell us, if you guys have a similar situation, you know, have you experienced loss in your family with kids? How have you dealt with that? You know, do you have any advice for us? Any stories? We love seeing your stories in the content.
we do.
In the comments. Excuse me.
And remember, again, like and subscribe down below. We'll talk to you guys later.